It's Property Now. Toby Young's the managing director and the man behind propertyrights.ae, and he's on the phone. Toby, it's good to have you on the programme.
Thanks, Tim. Good afternoon.
So look, you're based here in Dubai. You're running what is essentially a property advisory service. I've got 1,000,001 questions tumbling around my brain, which is not unusual. But first of all, what made you decide to set up the Property Rights website?
Right, so a few years ago when I moved to Dubai, I had problems with my landlord, and then I moved to another apartment, and then I had problems with the next landlord, and they were all different problems. Eventually I ended up going to RERA a couple of times, and I realised there was a gap in the market for an information service that would give people the information that they either didn't understand, they couldn't find, or had led to confusion. One of the common things I used to find when I'd be meeting people is they'd say, "Oh, I'm moving house in 2 weeks." Well, okay, what's happened? Are you moving something bigger? But, "Oh, no, the landlord told us last week we're putting the rent up." Well, they can't do that. And people are like, "Well, what else can we do?" And suddenly you realise, hang on, there's so many people that don't understand the rules and regulations out there. The government have designed these in conjunction with the Dubai Land Department and RERA, and they're fairly easy to understand. They just need to be broken down into simple English, and that's exactly what we've done. We've put together a website that will take basic details from our subscribers' tenancy contracts. That can be either tenants or landlords, and then we will send them bespoke information as per those details directly to their inbox, just in time for them to need to know what's going on. In that, we'll include the real rent index, a maximum rent increase, and a maximum rent chargeable, along with all the associated laws with rent increases, evictions, and other legal notifications as well.
One of the things with things like this is you want where you live and you want your home life, if you like, to be smooth and hassle-free. And it's a hard thing to deal with, isn't it? And one of the issues that we face in Dubai is that the real estate market is still a young market. The regulations in place change, and they change regularly. They're updated often. So it's dynamic as a market. So lots of the issues that people face really stem from published information. You know, a lot of it is either hearsay or simply incorrect or out of date.
Absolutely. There's one thing we've noticed from obviously doing our research is that there's internet articles from 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago that give incorrect information, and people read them and they don't realise that the laws have changed numerous times since then. The other Emirates also have different laws regarding real estate. Again, they don't apply to Dubai, but if someone's moved from Sharjah to Dubai and they're not aware of that, they'll believe the Sharjah rules will apply. They sit there quite comfortably until one day they get an email or a letter saying your rent's increasing or you're being evicted, and they're like, what do we do now? And in honesty, the first thing people seem to do is panic. And that's what we're trying to eliminate. We're trying to make sure that everybody understands exactly where they are at any given moment during their tenancy.
What about regular misconceptions that you hear of on the site? I mean, you must hear a multitude of different things, misconception and confusion, and as you mentioned there, panic. But what do your site members tell you most often? A lot of the time we see people say, I didn't think my landlord could increase the rent in the first year. That was abolished in 2007-8. Mm-hmm. Others believe that the maximum rent increase in the first year is 5%. Again, that was from 2007-2008. We have others that say, my landlord can't increase the rent for 3 years. Unfortunately, that's Sharjah. We have landlords that say there's no rent cap anymore. Again, unfortunately, incorrect. That's Abu Dhabi. And the question seems to sort of run along those lines because each emirate, as I said before, has different laws. Each emirate has different notification periods and how notifications have to be sent to be made legal. And that's where a lot of the issues occur. The main thing to remember in Dubai, certainly for rent increases, is that at all times, a 90-day rule is in effect unless otherwise agreed in the tenancy contract by the tenant and the landlord. And that's something a lot of people miss. So when their landlord comes to them with 6 weeks or a month left on the contract and tries to increase the rent, as I said before, again, people panic. They don't know what to do. Where are they going to find that extra 20% from, or 30%, or 40% that they're being asked about?
People also are unaware of the rear rent index and how it works. It's not sort of a flat, your property is 50% undervalued, therefore your property can go up by 50%. That just doesn't work, and it's not the way the law works. Obviously, the rear rent index is on a sliding scale against the value of your property to what RERA have identified as a market average for your area.
Let me ask you about the RERA rent index. One of the property stories, really, I suppose, of the year this year, it was the news that the index will only be updated annually. We're due to see an update sometime early in the new year, I believe. What effect do you think this has had on the market, if anything at all?
It has had an effect, to be honest. What we've seen over the last year is that rents have steadily declined. Obviously, there's been less people coming to Dubai compared to the number of apartments that have been built or that have been opened up to rent out. So as rents have steadily come down, without a change in the RERA rent index, every tenant that is currently in a property is having their rents measured against the RERA rent index. So if their property in reality is sliding in value and the RERA rent index is not moving and is set slightly higher, then they could well be asked for a rent increase when in theory none would be due. But to make that worthwhile for a tenant to be able to argue back and negotiate with the landlord, the tenant would need to see something like a 10% drop in the local rents to where they're living to give them any kind of bargaining power due to obviously the costs associated with moving, agents' fees and deposits.
And a 10% drop is kind of unlikely, I guess.
It is. A 10% drop would take longer to play out. I think if you look at this year, some areas have seen between a 10 and 15% drop, but they tend to be the not so fashionable areas. Certainly when we've seen people subscribe to our sites, rents in fashionable places like the Marina, Palm, JLT and downtown are seeming to hold up.
What about next year then? If most market observers expect 2016 to be a more challenging year for the economy, oil prices are where they are, the $36, $37 a barrel at the moment, so languishing really. The prospect of Fed rate rises in the US has a knock-on effect here, potentially at least. It could mean that housing finance will become more expensive. Mortgages may well go up. You have a background in economics. I know that, Toby. What are your thoughts looking ahead? Not crystal ball gazing, but looking ahead.
To be honest, I think 2016 will see much the same as we've seen over the last 6 months. So starting from a rental point of view, I think we'll steadily see rents slip lower. Again, there doesn't seem to be the demand. People's outlook on life and how they spend their money is beginning to change as well, realising that it's silly to spend 50-60% of your salary on rents when you could possibly move somewhere 5-10 miles away and only spend 20-30%. I think we'll see the growth areas, Jumeirah Village Circle, Jumeirah Village Triangle, we'll see rents hold steady there because there is demand in those areas. But I think slowly but surely we'll see them slip. Again, at the beginning of 2015, people were talking about a 10-15% drop, which we have seen in empty properties. I think we will see that again in 2016. And everything will depend on the global outlook. If the global economy continues to slow, there is going to be less jobs in Dubai or in the UAE as a whole for people to move into. And on that basis, there'll be less net migration to the area and obviously less demand for properties, which again will feed a drop in rents. Now, with regards to interest rates, obviously the purchase of properties is going to be affected by interest rates. So if interest rates steadily increase in the US with the dollar dirham peg, we will probably see the cost of buying a property via a mortgage slowly increase. At the moment, interest rates in Dubai seem to be between 2.5% and 4.5% for mortgages. Usually I should say, banks like to increase what they charge their clients in line with what global interest rates are doing. It's unlikely the UAE banks would keep rates as low as 2.5% if rates in the US get to 1%. I think there you would probably see them allow maybe 50 points or 50 basis points or 0.5% of a rate to slip by, but they would start increasing. So if US rates went to, say, 1%, I think the banks here would be charging 3% for mortgages. That will have a slowdown on knock-on effect on sales, and they would probably slow again.
Toby Young's the man behind propertyrights.ae. Toby, hopefully we can get you in more regularly in the new year for Understanding Property on a Wednesday here on Drive Live. For now, appreciate your thoughts, and here's to a prosperous 2016.
Thank you very much, Tim. Happy New Year to you, sir, and I look forward to speaking to you next year.